Hello again, I am Blunty, and honestly I thought I was done making videos about Cyberpunk 2077's Nintendo Switch 2 port until I actually had a copy in my hands and could dig in properly. I was wrong on that. Rather delightfully, in fact, because I love this game and I'll take any excuse I can to indulge on a bit of chatter about it. And despite it being a game that will be just shy of 4.5 years old by the time the Switch 2 launches, Cyberpunk does sit as a flagship launch title. Which means, of course, Nintendo themselves will be throwing a spotlight on it and some promotion behind it, as they've done today, with a dedicated Creator's Choice video. Creator's Choice? No, Creator's Voice, with a V. Published through official Nintendo social channels. It includes a few snippets of new gameplay and dialogue cutscene stuff, about 90 seconds of it all up across the 2-minute and 20-second long video. And I'm sure the pixel-peeping obsessed are currently freeze-framing and 5-time zooming their way through it, looking for telltale flaws that literally no one will ever actually notice when, playing the game like a normal person. But you gotta farm that rage bait, don't you? OMG, look at that weird blocky hand under that motion blur that you see for all of 3 frames. Unplayable out of 10. Disgusting. Lazy devs. And hey, if you see, actually no, not if. Hey, when you see that in someone else's video, I want you to come back here and pop another comment down for me. On top of the one you're already going to leave, of course, because engagement, please. But listen to this.
This little simple thing that you can use one of your Joy-Cons to fight with your katana. You can use one of your Joy-Cons to fight with your katana.
Talking about very, very specifically using one of your Joy-Con controllers to fight with the melee weapon, and specifically the katanas. That seems to me like a very specific admission that it has some kind of free-flowing motion melee system. Waggle mechanics, if you will. Can we indeed have a fully motion-tracked sword, slicing how we slice, in the direction, at the angle, at the speed that we slice at, blocking where we block? However, the gameplay on show that was edited in over when he was talking about this sort of stuff doesn't seem to actually represent that, does it? That is very much the standard press a button to block animation they've got going on there. So it might be more limited to pose input rather than proper motion input. So maybe the motion controller is limited to something like holding the Joy-Con horizontally in front of you to trigger the pose, and then sort of waggle your wrist a bit to trigger the slashing animations, rather than a full free-flowing motion input system. Whichever way, I'm not really completely a fan of systems like that in general, at least not outside of VR, of course, where it's obviously a much more natural experience than the more detached nature of trying to waggle a sword on a flat screen, where you are physically detached from your character, even in first person, and you don't have the true one-to-one depth, correct 3D perspective of immersive VR and controllers which are tracked in absolute space where your hands actually are, rather than the much more limited relative motion tracking of things like we see in regular game controllers. The days of floaty, imprecise waggle mechanics from the days of the Nintendo Wii really did put a bad taste in my mouth for a lot of that. But it is still intriguing nonetheless, especially if you're like many of us existing fans of Cyberpunk and have done several playthroughs of the game already, exploring the multitudinous replay value thanks to the broad number of powerful, effective, and just fun playstyles the various skills and weapons and whatnot offer up to players. I have done full playthroughs using nothing but blunt melee weapons, and I've done another playthrough using nothing but bladed melee weapons, and it is, let me tell you, big fun if you've never tried a playthrough focusing on those options before. You will be horrified and or shocked how powerful you can be with nothing but a katana and the right build. But doing a run with only melee and only using actual physical swinging motion control? Well, that's one more gimmick playthrough to consider, isn't it? And it could be quite fun. Or it could be floaty, imprecise, arm-aching nightmare fuel, in which case perhaps the fun for me would be doing it on streams where the fun for you would be drawing enjoyment from my idiotic flailing and the goofiness of it all. They could even do some interesting mechanical things, along the lines of what we've already seen in preview gameplay for Metroid, for example, where it seamlessly switches between mouse mode and regular controller input simply by picking up the Joy-Con from the surface you've been mousing on. What if Cyberpunk can switch between mouse-aimed ranged weapons and motion-controlled melee simply by lifting up the Joy-Con? Like, it literally switches weapons to your sword or whatever melee weapon as you lift up the Joy-Con, and then switches back to your gun automatically as you place it back down for mouse mode again. That's an enticing little bit of mechanical immersion right there, in my opinion. And devs, on the small chance you are listening and haven't thought of that yet, well, there's still time to patch it in on day one, I imagine. And the fee for my genius gameplay ideas is very reasonable, I'll think you'll find. But hey, all of this is one more of those wait and see things, I suppose. Hopefully we'll learn a little more about what all that motion control talk was actually about. Or maybe it'll just be a launch day surprise. We'll find out, I suppose. But while it is exciting to see a few snippets of new gameplay, unfortunately, across this new video, actual new details or insights into this specific version of the game, aside from that enticing little sentence we've just been talking about, are kind of extremely thin on the ground. And mostly, it's just general talk about the game. A few sound bites about general design choices they made, like why they made it first person and not third person, and some PR speak about how immersive it all is, basically nothing we haven't heard them chatter about before, during the original launch and various updates and interviews and all that kind of stuff. It's nothing really to get excited about. It's probably more for people who aren't already really familiar with the game, Nintendo dedicated gamers who perhaps have never had a chance to play it before. So it was slightly disappointing for the likes of me, except, of course, for that tantalizing sentence. Till now, when you would have the standard controller scheme, of course, that all the existing versions use across all the platforms, then we learned it had support for the new Joy-Con mouse mode. Very exciting, making it the only console version of the game with a properly precise aiming mode. And no, I will repeat myself from the last time I spoke on this particular topic. Motion-assisted aiming is not properly precise. In a context compared to mouse aiming, it's just not. I had a lot of very angry, Splatoon players and stuff get all up in my bum about it when I said that in the other video. Motion control is not precise. It's just not. It's better than sticks. It's more precise than sticks. But when you look at the word precision, and you think about motion-assisted aiming versus mouse aiming, they're not even playing on the same field. In any case, if mouse mode is not your jam as a couch-based gamer, it also has full motion-assisted aiming support, of course, which is, in addition to my other statements about it, as I've mentioned before, even the likes of the PlayStation 5 version of Cyberpunk does not have, despite that console's own controller having the hardware capability for it, which is one of several reasons I highlighted when I was talking about how Cyberpunk 2077 on the Switch 2 is the best console version ever to exist. There are several more reasons, and if you're curious, well, link in the down below, of course. Thank you very much for watching. I am Blunty. I will catch you next time, and thank you as always to the patrons scrolling away up above there.